optional. And the purpose of the Center for Inquiry is, maybe you want to make that lower just for a moment. Can you put the white down so you can see that? Yeah. The purpose of the Center for Inquiry is to encourage a new enlightenment. We need to develop a new grassroots movement in this world, a movement that must fill a vacuum. Today, as we travel around the world, you have the great religions of the past. You have Islam, Hinduism, Orthodox Christianity, Orthodox Judaism, evangelical Protestantism, everywhere contesting our point of view, and the mass media, in one sense, selling the sensational, the paranormal, and the occult. And although we have fine schools and fine museums, and part of the public scientifically literate, nonetheless, we have a long way to go in conveying to the general public an understanding of science and an appreciation of what it is. And this is the purpose of the Center for Inquiry. Now, there are 10 centers in various processes of formation in North America. This great center in Ontario, and we're very thrilled that it has gotten off and that we think it has a great future. We have centers in the transnational headquarters is in Amherst, New York. How many people have visited us in Amherst? Okay, thank you very much. For those of you who have not, please come down. You may have to spend 3 or 4 hours on the bridge, but pick a time when you can get through quickly. We have a center in Los Angeles, yes, in Hollywood, California, a magnificent building that we put up. We rent offices. We had offices in Rockefeller Center, and we considered buying that building, but after we heard it was $1 billion, it was a little bit beyond our reach. So we do lease headquarters, and we're attempting to buy a building in New York. We have a CFI in Florida and Tampa for the whole state. In Washington, D.C., we opened a new lobby. And the Washington Post, when we did this, it was a year ago, Nathan, right? They said, think tank wants to emphasize thinking. And we made great progress in the last year, where we focus on 2 things, secularism and the integrity of science. And also we're contesting in the various courts of the United States, all the way up to the Supreme Court, many of the jurisdictions of that reactionary court. If there is one more appointee of a conservative, then the Bill of Rights and the entire Constitution is up for reinterpretation. So we hope that Justice Stevens lives at least until next year, where hopefully there'll be a change in administrations. We have a Center for Inquiry in Indiana, in Austin, Texas, of course in Toronto, and in progress centers in San Francisco and Chicago. And the thing that most thrills us is that there could be, in North America, 100 centers. The people in Vancouver would like us to create a center. We have people all over the country saying, yes, we need to convey the scientific method, the scientific outlook, moral values that are appropriate to the 21st century and beyond. For example, this great battle over stem cell research, based upon a theological moral doctrine that the soul is implanted at the moment of conception, that has prohibited scientists in the United States calling on federal funds to get new embryonic tissue in order to do that. Now, the recent development that you can clone from part of the skin is an important breakthrough, but that may not be sufficient. And we issued, in fact, a press release only 2 days ago. Was it 2 days ago? Yes, okay. On that point, that the possible discoveries on the frontiers of biogenetic engineering are so enormous for humankind that how can they be prohibited by the Vatican's doctrine that the soul occurs at the moment of conception? It makes no sense. That's a profound anti-scientific attitude. And so we have a center in Germany which emphasizes mainly skepticism. Now, I met the executive director of the Skeptics of Ontario. That organization I helped to found, I should point out, I think in 1977 with Jim Alcock and others, Henry Gordon, and I'm glad to see it's still going, though I wish they would meet here and with other people who share this commitment to the scientific outlook. The German Center focuses primarily, we have a nice building in Germany, they focus primarily on skepticism of the paranormal, alternative medicine, and other fields. We have a center in France, the University of Nice, a center in Poland, a center of Russia, in Russia. The head of the center in Russia, Professor Valery Kuvakin, is now visiting in Amherst as a distinguished fellow, and he couldn't get a visa to come into Canada. Not that he would be denied, but you had to be down at the consulate very early every morning, and by the time he got there it was closed, so he couldn't make it to Canada this time. We have centers in many, many countries. Now, I'm particularly thrilled with the centers in Africa, particularly in Nigeria, but also in Uganda and Kenya, and the great need for people in those countries. They've been invaded by missionaries for centuries, by slavers who captured people and brought them to the other countries. And now there are corporations, but no one is defending scientific naturalism and humanistic values. And we're saying to the people in Africa, yes, you take your destiny in your own hands, develop your rational capacity, lead a full life, and they find that to be wonderful, not to depend on others, but to raise themselves by their bootstraps. So the African, there are 60 humanist groups in Africa. There was only one 20 years ago. Similarly, in China, yes, I just returned from Beijing. Now, what is today? Today is Friday. I guess 10 days ago I returned from China, from Beijing. We had a World Congress in China. We have a new Center for Inquiry in Beijing. We have an entire floor dedicated to the Center for Inquiry. And on the way back, we stopped off at Shanghai, and they're in the process of creating a Center for Inquiry. They're committed to science and technology as the #1 priority. And they've been talking about human rights, as we have been talking about, democracy, as we've been talking about, and the hope that in time China will democratize and allow human rights. But also, it is a point of view that they find very, very important. Now, tonight someone said to me, well, the trouble with the Center for Inquiry is it's too atheistic. A skeptical friend said, it's atheistic. And I want to make that point clear. We are not to be defined simply by atheism. Many or most people are atheists within our movement, or non-theists, or agnostics, or skeptical of religious claims. And if we were to only be defined by the new atheism, much as we appreciate the breakthrough,